Welcome, welcome. I think it's time to get started. My name is Keith Watley, and I'm the founder and executive director at UnCommon Law. You have joined this webinar to talk about some positions we are trying to fill right now. We'll talk a bit about what those positions are and try to answer as many questions as you all may have about what they may be and how they fit into the work we're trying to do here at UnCommon Law. For those who don't know, we provide what we consider trauma-informed counseling and legal representation and policy advocacy to assist people who are serving life sentences primarily, but other long sentences, and their release from prison here in California is dependent on the Board of Parole hearings, the parole board. Right now, there are about 35,000 people serving those kinds of sentences in this state, and somewhere close to 10,000 of them are eligible for parole consideration every year. But most of them, unfortunately, are not actually being granted parole as they should be. This part of our work, the part we're talking about tonight, is our policy effort. And it really grew out of our experiences working with people one-on-one who are navigating this, what we call the discretionary parole process. And we've learned a lot. We have worked with a lot of clients who've had to navigate this process, many of whom have been successful. We have seen actually more than 300 of our clients come home from life sentences. Some of them have come to join us on our staff to help bring others home. We're very, very proud of that. And right now, the process to get through this, through the parole board, involves answering some really difficult personal questions, and to answer them in a way that's insightful, that shows responsibility and also shows, remorse. And while our clients do fare better than most people are not succeeding in this process. In fact, people who've done the work to try to answer some of these difficult questions about circumstances in their lives that may have contributed to them harming others, and then they've gone on to transform their own lives and should be granted parole, too often they're still being denied. And so we saw that there was a need to advocate for some meaningful policy change that makes this process much more fair, more equitable. And so we started about 2 years ago building up this policy team, and we're now ready to expand it with at least one really senior position, and then at least one kind of mid-level or more junior position. And we're going to talk about those in a moment. But the other thing that we've come to understand is that some of the most significant changes that affect the legal landscape surrounding the parole consideration process, those changes, especially over the last 20 to 25 years, have occurred because of litigation. And sometimes that's meant that lawyers have filed lawsuits on behalf of people who are in prison or filed other kinds of petitions. But much more often, it has happened because people who have been improperly denied parole file their own petitions, and they've won. And we're seeing right now that there's an opportunity to really renew the focus on strategic litigation to continue to drive the change in the right direction. And that means individual parole hearing decisions, and that means more systemic change. So that's a quick overview of where we're headed. That's combining our one-on-one legal representation of individual clients with sometimes strategic litigation, with this effort to help change the rules and the laws that govern this process so that they're more fair and equitable and accessible. So you'll hear about most aspects of that as we get into our webinar tonight. You'll hear from some of the folks on our policy team. You'll hear from folks on the legal team about how these two teams work together, and how we envision it, at least. I'll stop talking now and turn it over to Leah Daoud, who's our policy manager. She's going to talk about the policy associate role that we are trying to fill.
Excuse me. Thanks, Keith. Appreciate the handoff. Hi, everybody. My name is Leah. I'm a policy manager here at UnCommon Law. As Keith said, I've been here about 4 years now. And I'm so excited to chat a little bit about our policy associate role, which is actually the role that I started in when I started doing policy at UnCommon Law. So what will the policy associate role be responsible for? The policy associate is going to be someone who is just really passionate about using policy advocacy as a tool for liberation, and is excited to support our fast-growing team. Some of their projects will include supporting our legislative priorities and fighting for reforms that make it easier for parole applicants to come home. They'll be helping our entire policy team stay on top of our projects and tasks, and monitoring our high priority bills, including drafting position letters as needed. They'll also be facilitating opportunities for currently incarcerated people to weigh in on our policy priorities, which is something that we're just so excited about. They'll also be attending monthly Board of Parole hearings, executive board meetings, and sharing notes and key takeaways with our staff, as well as facilitating opportunities for community members to weigh in on public comment periods during emerging regulations. And lastly, I think the big bucket is just helping us plan educational events for legislators and helping us draft materials that educate the public on how the discretionary parole process, how it harms parole applicants, how it harms their communities, and how it harms the state of California as a whole. So as our policy team grows and changes, as Keith mentioned, the policy is someone who is just really going to help our team live our values, especially our values of collaboration, community, liberation, and I would also say joy. The policy associate is going to have a lot of opportunities to grow on our team, and we're really looking to them to help the entire team just be more effective and be more values driven. So who are we looking for? You'll notice on the job description, there are a whole range of competencies that we've included. But when it comes down to it, what we're looking for is someone who has demonstrated passion for our work, demonstrated passion for people who've been impacted by life sentencing. And we're looking for someone who has the technical and administrative skills to help our team stay organized and to help our team stay on top of our advocacy priorities. I'll also add that we're really committed to a holistic review process, and we want everyone who is interested in this role to apply. So for example, maybe you're somebody who doesn't have a full year of policy experience, but you're somebody who is directly impacted by incarceration. Maybe it's you personally, maybe it's someone in your family, maybe it's your community. Maybe you're also a fantastic writer. You're someone who has excellent administrative and project management skills. You're really passionate about this work. If that sounds like you should apply. Even if you're someone who doesn't have all of the qualities and competencies listed on the job description, we really encourage you to throw your hat into the ring. We're going to be updating the salary range for this position, just to open it up to people who don't have 100% of everything that's listed on the job description. Maybe they don't have all of that experience, But maybe you're somebody who's just passionate about this work, willing to learn, willing to work hard, and we want to learn about you. We want to welcome you to apply. So for a full picture of the salary range for this role, you can refer to the job description on Bamboo HR. And then before I pass the mic over to Lily, I just also want to add that I can speak from personal experience that this is just an excellent place to work. Some of the best people that I've ever met. And so if you love a supportive workplace culture, you're going to love it here. And with that, I'll pass it over to Lily or to you, Keith.
I think it's me. Thanks, Leah. Good evening, everyone. My name is Lily Paratori. I am the managing attorney here at UnCommon Law. And I am excited to speak a little bit about today about our opening for a litigation and policy attorney. As some of you, I hope, are interested in learning more about, we are currently hiring for a litigation and policy attorney. And while this person will maintain a small caseload of clients, really the core job duties of this role are to engage in creative and novel litigation to ensure an equitable discretionary parole process in the state of California, and to partner with our policy team on various legislative research questions, policy research questions, and to really ensure that all of what we're learning on the legal team is really used holistically throughout the organization and vice versa. This is a new role at UnCommon Law. We've never had a litigation and policy attorney before, but it's a gap that we are really excited to fill because Keith and I want to do some exciting and new things in that area and are really looking for an experienced, passionate attorney who wants to drive our team specifically geared towards litigation and policy advocacy. So I can speak a little bit about the examples of job duties and responsibilities. They fall in sort of three major categories. That's litigation, legal research and writing, policy support, and client representation. So the largest area of responsibility is going to be litigation, legal research and writing. And so that's going to include developing and researching either state habeas corpus claims and or state civil claims to litigate in the state courts in California. And we're hoping to do that in a really holistic way, whether through legal research, Public Records Act requests, or interviews with former clients and folks inside to make sure our litigation strategy is informed by all key stakeholders involved in this process. As Keith mentioned, so much of the successful litigation in this space has happened through jailhouse litigation and jailhouse lawyers, and we want to keep that tradition alive and look to folks inside to guide us in this process. So this role is going to help research and develop those claims, also going to have a big role in drafting, editing, and filing those legal pleadings, as well as other advocacy documents to the Board of Parole hearings. This is a really exciting role. We're in a really exciting time in our litigation here at UnCommon Law, and so we're really looking for someone with experience in state courts to pick up and join us in these efforts. In terms of policy support, a part of this role is going to be collaborating with the policy team to develop legislation impacting people affected by the California discretionary parole process. We're going to ask this person to conduct some legal research to support UnCommon Law's policy goals. And as I mentioned earlier, really ensure cross-team communication and collaboration between the legal and policy teams. And that also will support with some Public Records Act requests and litigation that we're currently engaged in. And then the last piece, as I mentioned, is going to be client representation. We are hoping that this role will have a small client caseload because we really do feel that experience directly with the parole process best informs the kind of advocacy that we can do on the litigation efforts and expose the problems and the systemic solutions that we want to forward in our litigation. So while this person certainly will not have a full caseload, they will have some opportunity to work directly with clients. And those are the three main categories of duties and responsibilities in this role. I can talk a little bit about the experience and abilities that we're looking for. As I mentioned before, this is an attorney role. So we are looking for an attorney, and we're ideally looking for someone with a minimum of 5 years of experience engaging in state habeas or other state civil litigation. This is really because we're looking for a partner who has experience. This is something that is fairly new to UnCommon law, or at least a new developing area. And so we're really hoping someone can bring many years of experience to the role. We're looking for someone who has a passion for our cause, for our values, someone who wants to advocate for folks inside, and someone also with some experience with the legislative process in California. I can speak a little bit more to that in question and answer, but I'm curious, Keith, if there's anything you wanted to add that I missed in terms of the role.
I think you got it all.
Thanks. And I did just want to clarify quickly, this webinar has been sort of advertised as part of our policy openings, but this attorney role would technically be part of our legal team rather than our policy. Just for the sake of clarification, I would be reporting to folks on the legal team. And with that, Keith, over to you.
All right. Thank you, Lily. And thanks, Leah. And I don't want to spend too much more time talking before we find out what you folks actually want to hear about. But I will talk for just a minute or two about the other position, which is the Director of Policy and Advocacy. And this position is very much a strategic partner to me and to other leadership within the organization. We need someone who has experience in legislative and regulatory policy advocacy, and experience in community organizing is really important. Whether that's organizing inside the prison, out in the community, wherever else. I see this as a position that I mentioned it requires strategic leadership, but there's also a great need for collaboration with team members, with community members, with very different backgrounds and experiences. And there's as a key component of this job, I see the role to be that of a mentor, of a trainer, supervisor, manager, particularly in building up the members of the policy team so that they all have an opportunity to engage in this work at the highest possible level. We don't expect everyone on our team, or any of our teams within the organization, to come with all the experience in the world, but we are committed to making sure people can develop into the strongest possible advocates, counselors, lawyers that they can be. And so that means our leadership really has to help with that and be committed to professional development for the folks on the team. So we want someone who has that experience and that commitment. The other details of the position are certainly in the job descriptions. We probably have at least a couple of questions. We won't need to be here the whole allotted time for this webinar, but I'm happy to have us entertain any questions that folks have. Let me see if I can make that bigger so I can read it. Oh, okay. That's a good question. If you're on parole, can you apply? Absolutely. Absolutely. We've definitely had staff members on parole and seen them discharged of parole. But in addition, I say welcome home, Warren. Congratulations. Yeah, a residence required exclusive to Oakland. Leah, what do you say to that one?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I can speak for the policy associate role. We do ask that the policy associate sort of, it'd be ideal if the policy associate is near Oakland so that they can come into the office. to sort of meet with the team and to participate in meetings and things like that. But we're not asking the policy associate to be in the office in Oakland every single day.
And I would say for the director position, it's similar. We don't expect someone to be here in the Oakland office every day, but you'll need to get to Oakland sometime, and we'll need to get to Sacramento from time to time doing this work. And so, obviously, being located here in the Bay Area, major plus to make that happen, and to obviously to be here in the office at least a couple of days a week. We're still a very I don't know if hybrid is the right word, but certainly a mixed group in terms of how many people are in and how often and for how long. Oftentimes, the different teams within the organization will have designated times where they get together and in person when they can. It's not always possible, we understand, but certain positions do require you be able to get to Oakland. And certainly the director position, the associate position, similar to what I said. Sorry, I don't have a better answer. Lily, you have anything else on the current position?
No, I mean, I think definitely being based in the Bay Area is ideal, but definitely can do legal research and writing from anywhere as far as I'm concerned. And we're really looking for someone who has the experience and passion and commitment to our vision and our values. And so I think for the attorney role, location is a little less important.
Now, I don't see other questions right now. Here's one. Oh, no, here we go. Perfect time. Okay, Lily, you want to start this one or want me to?
Sure, I can answer that. So right now, I will say one of the biggest gaps in our organization is sort of legal support to the policy team. And that can look like anything about a legislator thinks there's some legal barrier to one of our policies, or we've submitted a PRA request and we need to negotiate with the board a little bit about, going back and forth and potentially litigating the PRA. And so there hasn't always been attorney or legal support to forward the goals of the policy team. So that's certainly one way that collaboration could look like in this role. So it would be as needed based on sort of the needs of the policy team. But I think, as I mentioned before, we're really looking for someone who can ensure cross collaboration and communication between teams. I think a lot of the time, attorneys on our staff will notice common patterns or concerns. We'll see things coming up in non-client mail that we get. We'll hear from clients about certain issues. And so we haven't had a clear way to always communicate that with our policy team as well. And so we're really looking for someone who can sort of ensure that things that attorneys are seeing, our clients are experiencing in the parole process are getting directly communicated to our policy team, and also vice versa. Oftentimes, folks who are directly impacted might reach out to the policy team, and there might be something that us on the legal team wants to be aware of. And so I think it's both providing support in discrete areas, but also ensuring that we have like cross communication and collaboration. I don't know, Lee, if you would want to add anything to that. It's definitely. Oh, go ahead, Keith.
I was going to say thanks for that. The only thing I would add is just the point that we have 7 or 8 attorney positions here at the office, but they're all dedicated to either individual parole hearing client representation or to supporting our program called the Home After Harm. And so they are involved in an in-prison program and are fully booked is what I would say when the policy team comes with questions. And so we want to make sure they're supported as best we can.
Thanks, Keith.
Let's see. In what ways are policy advocacy goals directly influenced by incarcerated people? I can offer an answer. Leah, you want to start with that one? No? I just mentioned Leah just because of the need to know what the experiences are of folks inside that are most directly impacted by any policy idea or advocacy that we're engaged in. And so that means regular and strong relationships with folks inside who can either, provide feedback on ideas we have or give us ideas or direction to go in our policy work. We definitely are strongly encouraging people who have been incarcerated or have had family members incarcerated to apply for every position that we post. And even if we find that we end up with candidates who don't have those backgrounds, we remain committed to making sure that the concerns, the impact of folks who are who are incarcerated or their family members are central to our ideas, our policy development. And sometimes that's meant it's coming from staff. We have a number of staff members who are formerly incarcerated, a handful who've come home from their life sentences. And we regularly, this is part of the cross-team collaboration that we've referred to, which is making sure that people on every team can influence, can inform the work of every other team. And that's one way we help make sure that those concerns that may not be directly represented by a staff member on every team, that they're impacted and informed by either team members who are formerly incarcerated or their families or some of our inside folks who we're in regular contact with.
Yeah, if I could just, thank you for that, Keith. And if I could just add, we have a small group of inside policy volunteers that we've worked with over the last couple of years. And this is just such an exciting area for growth for us, especially with the addition of a new policy associate. We want to do more with folks who are currently incarcerated, but so far, having limited staff capacity has really just limited the ways in which we're able to do that. Last year, we wrote to our policy contacts inside, and we had our top policy priorities, and we sort of went through a process with them, getting their input on the different things that we were considering. But I've always felt like it's just not enough. And so I'm so excited with that. We'll have more staff support and be able to do more with folks inside and be in more regular contact with them and just have deeper engagement.
Thanks, Leah. Well, yeah, that's a you question.
Good question. Ooh, that's hard. Oh gosh, there's so many ways I could take this. I think one of the things that I'll take it from my own personal experience, but one of the things that I found pretty challenging when I was the policy associate at UnCommon Law was sort of just figuring out how to feel like I was making an impact. The depths of the issues that we touch here at UnCommon Law, the sort of harms of mass incarceration are so difficult. And I think, it was hard for me to feel like I was having an impact until I was able to sort of get organized, start working with folks in the community, other organizations, and just really having access to that sense of community of other people with similar values. So, there were times that the policy associate role felt pretty isolating, but I will say that we're really working to change that and to make sure that it's not so isolated and that this person is just really steeped in community.
I'll add just another dimension of the challenge of doing this policy work is that, there are many, but one is just that to the casual observer, our clients are not sympathetic. It's when I talk about what I do or the people I represent, oftentimes, there are a lot of, innocent people and wrongful convictions. And I say, yeah, that's true. Those aren't my folks. We start with the premise that our folks did it. And for the most part, there's certainly some exceptions, really important exceptions. But that doesn't tell us much about who they are. And for the most part, they also haven't had a great opportunity to tell their own version of who they are. And a lot of our job, I think, in this policy work is to help legislators and other policymakers understand who people are who are in prison, even incarcerated for serious and violent crimes, and so that they recognize, oh, there's some familiarity. I understand. This seems like someone who should be given an opportunity to come home. And so once we get over that hurdle, things start to shift. I think we're seeing that when we've created greater proximity between the lawmakers and other folks in the community and folks inside. But until we make that happen, it's really hard to even get people to care about these folks inside. Questions about timing and policy associate role? Leah, you want to take this one?
Sure. So I will say, I mean, there is some uncertainty in terms of our timeline, but I think our hope is that we'll have someone onboarded for the policy associate role at the end of May, maybe early June, and we'll likely start holding interviews. I think it's the last week of April, something like that.
Yeah. Okay. So this one is this is really a kind of a new dimension of our work, and part of it is about recognizing that what we've come to understand in California is just one example of the ways in which people convicted of serious and violent crimes have been, frankly, discriminated against, overlooked, forgotten about, written off, et cetera, disadvantaged, and not well understood. But every state has some version of this. Not all of them come close to providing this opportunity to be released on parole, but some of this community organizing effort is about recognizing that in addition to California organizations, individuals who are working on this, there are other pockets of coalitions, alliances, doing similar work, having similar conversations, but not with each other. And some of what we expect this director of policy and advocacy to be able to do is to connect those conversations in a way that leads to real movement, whether that is taking the lessons we're learning in California to influence litigation, policy development in other states, to bring about some of the transparency that we've started to see in California that is still missing in other states, or to find ways to mobilize family members and others who are incarcerated and directly impacted by these harmful policies, so that there's a meaningful, like, groundswell of activity that in some ways is lacking in a lot of places right now. And it's not something that we have spent enough time working on as an organization yet. So this will be one of the things that this position will spearhead for us.
I can answer this
Okay.
one, unless you want to, Keith.
No, you got it.
Yeah, the question was about intake in our office and how we get parole clients. We have a sort of like non-client and intake team as a part of our legal team who handles all intake and resource inquiries. And they are not on this call, obviously, but two folks in our office who do an amazing job handling all of our correspondence from non-clients, potential clients, and their loved ones seeking resources and information. So we have an intake process. We work with all of our clients pro bono. We have a wait list and just a short intake process that allows folks to be on our wait list for the two primary services we offer, at which point they're sort of like in queue. And when an attorney has capacity, we will pull someone from our wait list. So we get clients in that way. We're very lucky to have Keith as our executive director with an incredible reputation inside, to have a lot of folks know us and want to work with us. And so we don't have any criteria though for clients. We work with anyone who wants to come home. If they want to work with us, we're willing to work with them. It's a core value of our legal team. And so we don't have any like requirements in terms of programming, discipline, that kind of thing when we're looking to take on clients. This question from Daphne about how UnCommon law has contributed to challenges. I don't know, Keith, do you want to answer that one or?
Yeah, I can talk a little bit about that. We've had a bunch of individual, usually it's habeas corpus petitions where someone's been denied parole or they've been granted parole by the parole board and then the governor blocks their release and they go to court to challenge those decisions. And we've had a lot of those. I don't even know how many dozens, maybe 100 or more of those that we've handled over the years. But in addition to those individual cases, we've handled two, maybe the only two class actions impacting people serving life sentences. Each has had a class of 10,000 class members, and that covers everybody who is eligible for parole. So out of the 35,000 or so who are serving these sentences, about 10,000 have served enough time to become eligible for parole. And so we've had class actions that directly involve the timeliness of their parole hearings and the parole board's use of psychological evaluations to assess people's risk in anticipation of their hearings. Those are the biggest class actions that we've been involved in, which has impacted everyone who's eligible for parole.
Yeah, and I would also add, so those cases are both concluded, but we are actually currently litigating a case in the Court of Appeal challenging the board's training and appointment procedures for attorneys, state-appointed attorneys in the California parole process, which is certainly a case that we're waiting on the Court of Appeal to do something about, but that would certainly be a case that we're currently litigating about like effective representation in parole hearings that the litigation and policy attorney would certainly be helping us work through as hopefully something happens in the Court of Appeal. So patience is also a great virtue in this.
That's right. Yeah, the issue there is, one of the big reasons I started UnCommon Law is because the quality of legal representation that people had when they were appearing before the parole board was terrible. There's a statutory right to an attorney when you appear before the board, but the board doesn't really support that process very much. The compensation is terrible, and the support, guidance, training is virtually non-existent and certainly not effective. So much so that state-appointed attorneys, their clients have about half the parole grant rate as private attorneys like us have. And so this lawsuit is it's really arguing that the state is providing an ineffective system for providing counsel to people appearing before this process. You want to talk about this one?
Yeah, sorry. It always takes me a second to find the unmute button. Jay, yeah, I would say, our policy priorities are definitely always going to be rooted in the BPH and parole hearing processes and sort of working to bring more folks home through the parole process. We also always try to support other bills, especially ones that make it easier for folks to come home, whether it be through resentencing or other processes. And we also often support bills that, are sort of rooted in conditions and making things easier and a bit fairer for folks inside. So I think, all of our policy priorities, we envision them being firmly rooted in the BPH process. Keith, is there anything you'd want to add to that?
No, I mean, with the key word in the question being priorities, absolutely replacing this terrible, abusive parole process. That's the priority. Absolutely. We recognize the value of everybody, no matter where you're coming from, what your current experience is. If we could find a different way to even hire currently incarcerated folks, we would do it. We have partnerships. We have some other programs that are developing some kind of unique ways to support folks inside and engaging with our work. But certainly, we have several current staff members who have family members who are incarcerated currently or formerly. Absolutely, you're encouraged to apply. Short answer, yes to all those things, Emilio. And I would even say, while the catchy reference is parole reform, some ways it's kind of like police reform. You can't really do it. You kind of have to replace some of the fundamental tenets with something else, and so that means new and different policies. It's not just tweaking things, but also it is operating within the political reality that people don't understand or like our clients or what they did or what they stand for, what we stand for, and that means you have to get creative in how you look for, create opportunities for wins, so that we can long term replace this policy and this process with something that's fair and equitable. Leah, you want to talk about this one?
Sure. So we're working with a coalition that was just formally launched last year, called the California Alliance for Parole Reform, which goes by CAPER. And so in that coalition, we've got the Ella Baker Center, we've got ACLU, Initiate Justice, California Coalition for Women Prisoners, Californians for Safety and Justice, and a couple others, but really Smart Justice. Thank you. But really, folks organizations that we really love and work closely with in the community.
So that may be all the questions we have right now. And now on the screen, you can see the link to the applications, get more information. As Leah said, we're going to continue to update the policy associate one. And just the thinking behind that is that we want to make sure that the opportunity is available to a wide range of people with a wide range of experiences. And that includes people who are, formerly incarcerated, recently released, maybe had some policy development analysis experience inside, and are looking to dig into a position here on the outside, all the way up to people who have several years of experience. We want to make the position accessible to people, and so we'll probably tweak it a little bit, provide more of a range of kind of qualifications and compensation. So we'll be updating that shortly. Any other questions? I don't see any more. And if that's it, then I'll invite either Lily or Leah to share anything in closing you want, or I'll shut it down. What do you think?
I do see a question or a comment really to bring back SB 1064, our past confidential information bill, which I would love. I don't know if either of you want to weigh in on that. That's from Warren. I don't know, either, Leah.
Leah, you want to say anything about that?
I think if anyone in the legislature wants to bring it back, we would be very supportive.
Yeah, so that bill was about prohibiting the use of confidential information in parole hearings, especially if it had never been proven to be true, never been the source of rule violation reports and formal disciplinary hearings, et cetera. Here's another question. Uh-oh, the LinkedIn stream cut out. I hope that's not our fault. Yeah, what would a replacement to the parole process look like, ideally? You know, my short answer is eliminating the parole board's discretion to decide whether somebody safely be released. That's what it would look like. And there's good reason for that, mostly that they can't do that. Like they can't actually reliably predict future behavior, but we've been pretending for way too long that they can. But when you have the kind of discretion that they have, then that also breeds bias and discrimination against the same groups that are discriminated against in every other aspect of our society.
I think we got them all now.
Maybe, hopefully. Okay. Well, don't hesitate to reach out if things come up. But as I think, Leah, you put it, just if you think any of these kind of appeal to you, apply, reach out. If it feels like you want to be involved in helping us advocate to replace this process with something that's fair and equitable, throw your hat into the ring. We'd love to have your application to consider and have you engaged in this conversation. So thank you for joining us tonight. Thank you, Lily. Thank you, Leah, for helping to shine some light on what we're trying to create here. Looking forward to seeing your applications. Some of you may even be joining us later this week. We have another webinar where we're talking about our Home After Harm program, which you'll hear from one of our staff members who's a former client who helps to lead that program inside a couple of prisons here in the state. So thank you, folks. Have a great evening.
Thank you, everyone.